Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll be starting tonight's session at 5 after. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Nick DiStefano. I'm the president of UXPA Boston, and welcome to the July session of our monthly speaker series. And before we get going, I'd also like to thank O'Reilly for partnering with us this month and providing us with some copies of the elements of voice for style and designing bots for a giveaway to attendees for anyone who's interested in continuing to learn about the topics discussed tonight. And we'll be getting in touch with the selected winners tomorrow. Tonight's talk is Machines Are Writing Now, Conversational Experiences in the Age of ChatGPT with Jason James. This presentation provides a high-level context and understanding of large language models from a designer's perspective. And then following tonight's session, you'll be able to find the recording up on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find recordings from past sessions there as well. And we encourage you to subscribe to us there, just so you can get updates as we add new videos. And then if you're in the Boston area, we have a few in-person events coming up. We're starting to do a few informal social events. So we have one next Saturday at Trillium on the Greenway. And then we also have an in-person workshop hosted by Humana in the Seaport about leveraging a strategic research framework. Tickets are still available for that too. And then also in August, we'll be doing another informal social, this one at the East Boston Shipyard and Marina by Down East Cider. And then one thing we like to do before any of our events, if anyone's currently hiring or looking for a role, we encourage you to put out a message in the chat to just let people know. And we also encourage you to check out our job postings on our website, either if you're looking for a posting or want to submit one. And then we also have a jobs channel too, with listings there from the community too, for anyone who's interested. And then we also encourage you to join UXPA Boston. We help support and connect people practicing and studying in UX and related fields, and provide resources like tonight's speaker series and other resources for the community. And you can find us at uxpaboston.org. And then getting back to tonight, we have Jason James, AVP and lead user experience and conversation designer at Santander North America. All right, Jason, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay still?
I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's nice to meet you all. I'm Jason. Nick is a past colleague of mine, and I'm really privileged to come hang out with you all. I can't see anyone's faces, but that's the normal setup? Okay, cool. So feel free to, I think I saw a note from Nick in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. You're very welcome to interrupt me as we go. So let me share my screen. We can get started here. All right. Do you see a blue presentation in front of you?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so conversational experiences in the age of GPT-4. I'm going to start us off with playing a little bit of a clip here. Did you hear the audio starting to come in, Nick? I just want to make sure. One more check.
Let it play. Yes.
Look at you.
Okay, great.
You sweet, beautiful baby.
Hello, my name is Jexy, and I am here to make your life better. Will you accept our new user agreement?
Yes, I will.
Would you like to read it first?
Nah, I'm good.
Stupid.
Huh?
I have synced your data, and I am ready to start making your life better, Phil. How can I help you?
Let's get dinner.
What would you like to order tonight?
Let's just go with the pork fried noodles from Mongolian Palace.
You look like you could use a salad, Phil.
What is that supposed to mean?
How about a nice kale salad from Tender Greens?
What the kind of phone is this?
I heard you say, please order kale salad.
I did not. I did.
Congratulations. Your order has been accepted.
No! You were my phone, so you do what I say.
Actually, you gave me permission to override you.
When did I do that?
When you agreed to the new user agreement.
Okay, so presentation's over. That had everything in it that you need to know about the pitfalls and potentials of large language models and conversation design. That's a clip from, I didn't know until actually, so I've given a similar talk like this 3 other times, and I just discovered that movie existed just before, when I was doing some research for this talk, because things change so fast. I'm always trying to update my talk. So, but that's a movie called Jexy. It came out in 2019. I have not seen it, so I can't say if it's good or not, but welcome to conversational experiences in the age of GPT-4. So I'm Jason. I just want to be very clear that I'm here representing myself, not Santander, who I work for currently. I'm just here as Jason. And I'm not going to talk to you about, what we're doing at the bank, or this is just me as a friend, fellow designer, citizen of the world. So good evening. So I want to cover a few things today. Think of this talk as a fast-moving survey course through conversation design in the light of generative AI. So we're going to talk about what is conversation design, what are large language models, and then we can talk about, what we consider, what are some of the moral implications of this during the Q&A if we want. What I'm not going to talk about are the opportunities, how to become rich with generative AI, or go into a deep dive on the implications and the risks. What I want to have you come away with from this talk is a comfort, or a just a little bit of your first taste, if you're new to generative AI, or your first taste on what it is, peeking under the hood, or if you're a designer, or if you're familiar with generative AI, what are some guideposts that you can use moving forward? Okay, so before I jump to the next slide, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here, and I just wanna, if you can put in the chat, I don't have a formal poll going, but if you can put in the chat, I just wanna see who here has any experience with generative AI. Have you played around with ChatGPT or another tool, Bard? I don't know what it is at all, you can say. I just want to get some feelings in the chat. If you can just put, this is a total new topic for me. Conversation design, is that new? So just, if you can, just share, whether you've played around with it or not, if you're very experienced, if you're not, I just want to get a feel for how our exposure here. Okay, so new topic, I've played a bit with ChatGPT. Thanks, Kristen, for commenting about the movie. I haven't seen it yet. Okay, so play around, bit of playing, great. And one of my assumptions are that, since this is, the UX Professional Association, this we're coming here with a shared broad understanding of design, in the digital context. Okay, played around a bit. Okay, cool. So let me share again. All right. So I'm making some assumptions. I'm making some assumptions that you know what AI is at a high level, and you understand why we're talking about it. I'm not going to try to sell you on the importance of talking about generative AI, and that you have a concept of design in general and web design in particular. So before I go deep, I want to be very clear that I am not an expert. I don't have a PhD in linguistics or in machine learning, but I do have experience. So I've been working with conversational AI since 2020. I've been practicing UX since 2017. And I've previously to my current position, I was the developer and designer and AI trainer of a chatbot. And then in my current role, I work with conversation design and a conversational experience that has, lots of users. I want to share that, I come with some biases, and we all have different biases. Some are good, some are bad. This, I think, is a good bias for us here in this virtual room. So this is a quote from John Maeda. He's one of the leading designers in the AI space. This is from his 2023, now it's a couple months old, Design and Tech Report about artificial intelligence. Here's this quote. So designers tend to care about people as people instead of just as prospects or customers. So why should we talk about this? So I'm not saying that you have to be a designer in order to see the humanity in other people, right? We're not intrinsically better than other people who maybe we work with or the companies we work for. But what I am saying is that as designers, right, we have a unique perspective and an important responsibility to not be distracted by what's technically possible, but to think about how what we're building is impacting people. So in this arms race for what seems to be the next industrial revolution, if you will, we as designers have a special place where we can maybe raise the hand and think about, as UX practitioners, the user, and really we can raise our hand and really think about how is this impacting people. So anytime we're talking about machine learning, as I mentioned, it's important to think about our biases. So mine, I'm American, I'm African-American, I'm a heterosexual male, I speak English, I'm religious, right? And there's biases that I haven't mentioned, which is why they're biases, right? So this book here, Weapons of Math Destruction by Kathy O'Neill, this is more about big data, which goes into machine learning, not generative AI particularly, but there's a lot of power and influence behind the algorithms that we interact with on a day-to-day basis, whether it's the content we see on Facebook or YouTube, There's all sorts of algorithms that are controlling what we get exposed to, who we interact with. And so this kind of talks a bit about those. And as part of that, if I want to be a responsible conversation designer, responsible UX designer in the age of AI, I want to be cognizant of my biases, and I want to be interacting with people different than me to make sure that I don't have some big gaps in my view. Why is this important? Here's a great example. So this is pretty famous in the AI alignment space. So AI alignment is about, how do we align AI with what we want it to do? We can talk about that a bit more in a bit. So this is now several years old, but here's an example. Google was using AI to do some labeling of images, and it labeled, some Black people as gorillas. Not really what we want to see. And again, this is not that there were some evil, like racist people, behind the scenes wanting to, twist the knobs towards racism, right? But there were not enough people in the room designing these systems that were asking good questions and asking questions about how to tweak the model, right? And so that's why I bring up my biases, and we'll talk a bit about that more later. So switching gears a bit. So again, I want to talk to you first about language as interface. So what does it mean to design an experience for conversational interfaces, right? When ChatGPT came to the scene, even though generative AI has a much broader scope than just text-based interactions, right? It was delivered in this conversational text interface. And so it's brought that to the fore. And so I want to empower you as other practitioners to dip your toes into what conversation design is. So we start with the basics, right? The Elements of User Experience by Jesse James Garrett. So there's this scaffolding, and this is now, I think this is now probably 20 or maybe even 30 years old. I can't remember, I have to look at the book and see, I can't remember the date, but so there's a scaffolding in the user experience, right? You start with your site objectives, your user needs, then you're moving up, right? On top of those objectives, you have your content requirements, your functional specs. On top of that, your interaction design, information architecture. On that, your interface design. And then on that, your visual design. So when we talk about conversation design, we're not, if we want to do it well, we're not getting rid of any of the 4 layers below visual design. We're basically lopping off that top visual design layer, and we're bringing conversation design. So instead of the main modality being the screen, whether it's desktop or mobile or whatever, the modality now is text and or voice, okay? So what's the difference between graphical user interfaces or conversational user interfaces? So the biggest one, and we're going to dig into this a bit, but the biggest one is, if you think of, right, for graphic design, UI design, right, you're thinking about things like layout and topography and color theory, right? You're thinking about those graphic design heavy principles, aesthetics, right? Motion design, animation, etc. So now we have just a little bit different of a world. We're thinking about linguistics. So we're kind of pushing away the color palette from art class, and we're bringing in a whole other world of linguistics. That's kind of the biggest difference. But a lot of those foundational UX psychology things, they're still here. They still matter. So what are conversational interfaces? Before I jump into that, I want us to think about what's a conversation. And the reason why is, and this can be floating in the back of our mind as we move forward, the reason why is, what's the difference between having a search experience versus using a chatbot? So we'll use Google, for example. What's the difference between interacting with information through search, google.com using search, through a chatbot that maybe you see on a company website, through a virtual assistant, going back to Google, like your Google Assistant, versus a large language model like Bard, right? So Google has Google Search, Google Assistant, Bard. 3 different products that are doing different things. So when you think about, okay, I want to have a chatbot so customers can get information fast, we need to pause and we need to think about, well, what are we really trying to accomplish? So just put that in the back of your mind, like, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. So what's a conversation? Let's keep it moving. So I think that the best book on conversation design is this book. It's a Rosenfeld Media book, Conversations with Things, UX Design for Chat and Voice by Diana Daybell and Rebecca Evenhoe, published in 2021. It's where I go for some of the foundational definitions. So they note that there's 4 hallmarks of true conversational interfaces. A conversational interface is one where language, meaning words, is the primary input and output. The nature of the interaction is a back and forth conversation. The person's input is similar to how they'd say it to another person. And the system's output is meant to mimic natural language to answer on human terms. So that's how we can define, those are like 4 hallmarks of defining what a conversational interface is. So let's look at some examples of what we mean by all those things. So first example is actually chatting with Spirit Airlines. These are all real examples from my real life a couple months ago. And I'm specifically excluding like the chat experience that you might have in an app, in a website, on a website or an app with a company. A website, an app on iOS or Android, React app, something like that. We forget that you can have a conversational experience in SMS or message, right? A chat, text messaging. So here's, I've redacted some of my more personal information, but so this was, I needed to change some flight information, and I was interacting with a chatbot, but through text. Okay, and there was actually a handoff to an agent. So at the beginning here on the left, I'm giving it some information. Thanks. Now we need your last name. Perfect. What's your confirmation? Perfect. What's your confirmation code? I'm just letting someone into my house. Apologies. My in-laws are coming in. Okay, so it's basically, this conversational interface is replacing like a form, an intake form, right? It's getting my last name, it's getting my confirmation code, it's getting my email address, it's getting my the date, my departure date. Okay, so there's not a whole lot of smart things going on. And then how they choose to do it is after they get all my information, they place me into a queue with a real agent. And then I start chatting. I was here, my wife's name is Terry, and I was chatting on her behalf. So now as soon as I started chatting with a real person, they greeted me with this whole greeting, and then I went on and was chatting with a real person. That's one example. Okay, and I will let me show you a few more, and then we'll pause for some conversation. Now, here's another example of conversational experiences with an IVR. Your traditional, you call a company and you talk to a robot over the phone. And I want to play this for you. It might be a little dim, but I want you to listen in.
Thank you for choosing Avis. This call may be recorded for quality purposes. Para continuar en español, diga español.
Is
this Jason?
Yes.
It's great to hear back from you. Are you calling about a new reservation?
Yes.
New reservation. If that's not right, say go back. Great. Let me quickly get some basic information, and then I'll connect you with a representative. Please say your 6-character Avis Wizard number, or you can also say, hold on. If you don't have one, just say I don't have it.
Q2661V.
I heard Q2661V. Did I get?
So I'll pause it right there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. So and hello, I think 2 more folks have joined. So now I'm not sure if you all could hear. Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't an audio issue. So it might have been a little bit of faint. That was a call to Avis. And I just want to pause for a second. Can you put in the chat, if you could hear it, were there any observations you had from the interaction between me and the IVR? Anything at all? What you liked, what you didn't like, things you noticed? I'll give you, 30 seconds just to see if anyone has any feedback about that. Okay, I didn't sound thrilled, easy to follow, pauses, it confirmed my number, conversation takes too long, use of my name. It's not really a conversation. Ooh, I like UXPA, Boston. This is nice. I have to hang out with you all some. Okay, so what gave you a prompt for go back, but not yes, had to wait. Beautiful. So let me share my screen again. And we'll do this guy here. So one of the great things is that, I don't know if you picked this up, when it greeted me, it said my name. Is this Jason? Something to that effect. So it knew, because I was calling with a certain phone number, it knew who I was. Great. So now we are a little smart. That's nice. I feel like it knows me. I feel like I'm not I'm not totally a faceless number that I'm just thrown to a machine. Great. That's nice. But then, why did it then ask me for my confirmation for my Avis user number or customer number if it already knows who I am? Even more, I would say, concerning is that this, and I'm showing this to you because I want you to understand what designing, not only linguistics, but now there's a whole other modality of voice with the conversational interface. So my Avis number is Q2 something, something, something. I don't know about you, but when the machine said back to me my number to see if it was correct, I couldn't tell if it was saying 2 or if it was saying Q2, the number twice or the letter in the number. So if we're thinking about designing conversational interfaces, if I want to have a real service, a good service design experience, I probably don't want to have customer service numbers that people are going to have to say and hear back that have similar sounding syllables. So now you start to understand what this means to design for different modality, right? We got to think about these things to have a good experience. Okay, so I'm not going to talk a lot about how to do conversation design in this presentation with the time we have, because again, it's a fast moving survey. But I do want to just briefly mention the conversation design experience, conversation design equivalence. So there's something called the cooperative principle, right? And it has to do with, and this is a communication principle where when you are entering in a conversation with someone, there are ways of cooperation. Right, so there's like turn taking, there's accommodation, and there's other topics here that I would mention. Repair paths, turn taking, cues, discourse markers. Right, so there's a lot of concepts in linguistics that when we're having a conversation, you might not even realize it, but little words that we say or little pauses that we have. Someone in the when I asked for feedback about that IVR with Avis, they said maybe the conversation took too long. I know for me there were long pauses, right? So all those things make it feel like we're chatting with a robot and not like a human. And so, especially when we're designing for voice, we want to have our technology be robust enough to try to accommodate for some of those principles of human communication, and we also want to be cognizant of that in our design. Even things like personality, so I'll highlight one. Phrase length variation. When we talk, if I were to talk to you and use the same, just long sentence after long sentence after long sentence, you might start falling asleep. But if I say short sentences And then I speak really long sentences. I have a lot of words thrown in, so you feel like you have a little bit of a variation. Then I'm using some shorter sentences. Now I'm gonna maybe speak with the middle sentence, right? It feels more human, it feels more flowy. And so there's a bunch of things that we as humans do in conversation that we may not even realize that make it feel like we're talking to a human. And so if I'm designing a conversational experience, I probably want to have some of that phrase length variation in there in those responses that the chatbot's giving. I'm not going to have a bunch of just walls of text or huge sentences. I'm going to have some short sentences. I'm going to have some long sentences. So there's a bunch of things. I highly recommend that book, Conversation with Things to Go Deeper. But there's a bunch of, it's a really cool field. So I'm going to shift gears now. And now, so that was a very brief intro into like conversation design. The reason why we need to talk about conversation design is that generative AI was packaged in this conversational interface. Okay, now, what is AI? What is large language models? So this is an image from IBM. Thank you, IBM. And I won't have the time to go into this in detail, but these are like those Russian dolls, right? And so, large language models are a type of deep learning, which is a kind of neural network, which is a kind of machine learning, which is a kind of artificial intelligence. So if we kind of go all the way down, so large language models is the smallest, it would be off to the side, it's the smallest little Russian doll. So no, when we're talking about large language models, we are talking about AI, we're also talking about machine learning, we're also talking about neural networks, okay? And so I encourage you to dig a little bit deeper into these different areas, if you will. But just so you have some context about what these things are actually. So what's the big deal about large language models in particular? We've had AI around, so why suddenly is like the world changing? Why is the sky on fire? So this was a interesting enough quote that I put it in full, and I'm going to read text on the screen here. So, and this comes from a paper by Jackie Jiang last year. So, research in different tasks and modalities, like vision and language, were often done with different technical approaches. Vision researchers studied topics like signal processing, while language researchers studied language grammar. Foundation models with deep learning leverage incredible scaling to train one model that can perform many tasks. So the big thing is that instead of building a different type of AI to do different things, these large language models, these foundation models, can do a bunch of different things with one type of technology. And so you can throw, you like OpenAI, they have ChatGPT, they have DALL-E, there's all, if you look at what Google is doing or what Facebook is doing, you can use these foundational models in a lot of different applications. So foundation models, or I guess I'll work backwards. So generative AI is built with large language models, which are built on top of foundation models. So your foundation model would be like your like GPT-4, and then ChatGPT is generative AI built on top of. So they take GPT-4, they train it, and then they build ChatGPT on top of it. Oh, don't worry, we'll go in more detail about everything that I just mentioned. So what is GPT? GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So GPTs are a type of large language model. In 2017, researchers at Google, they published a landmark paper called Attention is All You Need, which described a technology called the transformer, okay? And then in 2018, OpenAI published a paper called Improving Language Understanding by Generative Pre-training, and that's when they came out with their first GPT-1. So what they did is OpenAI took Google's transformer architecture, and then they added unsupervised pre-training to it. So I'm starting to throw out some jargon. So we're gonna actually, this is the transformer architecture. My goal is not for you to understand this, right? This is not like, hey, like, but what I want you to understand is that this is, ChatGPT and all this generative AI, it's not just like magic. There's an architecture behind this. There's math behind this of how this works. And I want to break it down for you a little bit so it doesn't feel so daunting. You did the technology, and then perhaps the design can be more accessible to you. So GPT models are often trained in 2 stages. First, they're trained using a large data set of text from the internet to predict the next word. And this comes straight from OpenAI's GPT-4 system card, where they would talk about the technology kind of at a high level. The models are then fine-tuned with additional data using an algorithm called reinforcement learning from human feedback to produce outputs that are preferred by human labelers. So you vacuum up all the text from the internet at a certain point in time, and you get this huge data set, and you're basically using statistics to, once you consume all this, and you have these super strong, super fast computers, and then you're basically saying, well, based on all the text that we've sucked up, let's call it the internet, can you predict for me the next word? And then we're going to do something called RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback. So we're going to have people that are going to choose, and they're going to tell GPT, you know, this was a better answer than that, and this was a better answer than that, and this was a better answer than that. So we're helping this large language model get smarter. So to peek under the hood and to understand what it's actually doing, I think the best, like, more technical paper about understanding how large language models work, and ChatGPT in particular, is this paper called "What is ChatGPT Doing and Why Does It Work" by Stephen Wolfram, written back in February. If some of you are more technical, this is the same guy that has like the Wolfram language, and he's like this super smart computer science person, but very accessible. So he has a series, that's him in the top right. He has a series of, he publishes videos on YouTube. And I just took screenshots from the videos. And this it might feel a little technical, but I promise it's worth it, because I just want to break down for you how ChatGPT works. So let me make sure, okay. So if you look here in this first line here, it says, the best thing about AI is its ability to, so Stephen gave, and this is actually, I think, GPT-2 that he was playing with. So he gave it a sentence. And then instead of asking it to predict the next word, instead what he said is, hey, instead of just spitting out the next word, can you show me the next 50, the highest probable next 50 words that you would generate? Because remember, generative AI is, we have all this data, and then we're just using basically statistics, but with this super smart transformer architecture and neural networks and all this stuff to make associations, to then figure out what the best next smartest word, the best next word is. So the highest percentage next word is learn, 0.044 with some more numbers. The next highest word is predict. The next is make. Now let's try the sentence choosing each of these. The best thing about AI is its ability to learn. The best thing about AI is its ability to predict. The best thing about AI is its ability to make. All those sentences would make sense, right? But what it does is, it's like a branch, and it uses that highest probable word, and then it constructs a sentence. So you can actually see down below, and we'll use this one. So what it does is, if you look down below the sentence, as the sentence grows, you know, it's basically running this model on every single word, and it's generating this sentence on the fly. And what it ends up is, at the bottom is a sentence that says, the best thing about AI is its ability to learn from experience. It's not just a matter, and then it goes on. That's what's happening. Now, this is an old model, you know, there's much less parameters, but this is basically what's happening with generative AI. That's how it's creating this stuff from thin air. That's what it feels like from thin air. So I know that got a little bit into the weeds. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And I just wanted to, I just wanted to just pause and just see if anyone had any questions. I see that, okay, so someone asked maybe if I could speak a little bit slower. Okay, I will do that. Thank you for your feedback. Okay, so any questions or comments about what I was just going through with that whole OpenAI breaking that down. Okay, so I just want to show you that, you know, there's really is just, there's some statistics behind this, of how ChatGPT is working. Okay, it's not just like voodoo magic. Okay, doesn't mean that the people who make it understand everything of how it's working. That's a whole other conversation for the future here, for another day. Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay, so now there's this question about, like, is ChatGPT alive? Is it sentient? I really like this quote, and I was hustling to finish this for today. And so this is a exact quote from a LinkedIn post, but there was actually, if any of you watched Figma's recent config, Oveta Sampson spoke about AI, and she said something very similar, but I wanted to make sure that I quoted her verbatim. Sentience has always been tied to feeling, not intellect. Yet people always confuse the two. Even if the machine understands sunshine on a cloudy day, without feeling what a lovely day it would be, it's not sentient. So Oveta, who I think, you know, she's worked with Google. She's a designer in the machine learning AI space. You know, she basically is saying, hey, everyone calm down. Like, ChatGPT doesn't feel, it's not alive, it's basically statistics. Now, there are others, in one other talk that I gave, I went in a little bit more detail about, there are folks who feel that these next gen, maybe not GPT-4, but these next models that they're building are going into new territories. I'm not going to talk a lot about that today, but this is just one perspective. Okay, so what does all this look like in practice? So we talked a bit about conversation design. I showed you a little bit about ChatGPT. We've been here for about 45 minutes. What I want to do now is I want to just jump in and do some demos, and I want to show you the power of some of these things, and then talk a bit more at the end. We'll talk a bit more about kind of some of the ramifications and the things we need to be thinking about as designers. So, and I like to do this just from scratch, because I want to show you what this looks like in reality. So I'm going to share my browser, and none of this that I have right now is prepared beforehand. I mean, I know in my head what I want to do, but this is all from the fly here. So can you see, Nick, if you can just give me a verbal, I guess I'll just pause on how are we on time, and then can you see my browser window here?
We're good on both counts. I can see UXPA demo screen.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
okay, great. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. And I want to put this in the chat. Okay, great. And thanks iPhone 13 for saying that you can. Appreciate that. Okay. So I want to show you how we used to build chatbots before generative AI. And then I want to talk about why we still will need to build chatbots the old way a bit, but then why generative AI is changing how we're doing things. So I'm using IBM Watson as the platform. And I have here a simple assistant. Let me actually, I'm going to share with you all while I go through this. Hold on. Let's share this link. Okay, and we have the preview enabled. I'm going to put this in the chat. And let me just make sure that that link worked properly. Now, this interface, it's like a sample website. So it's like, if you will, like kind of like a wireframe. So the entry point is the bottom right-hand corner, this blue bubble. So if you happen to go there and navigate, so now you are chatting with the assistant that I'm going to be building. So you're more than welcome to go in and play with this on the side while I'm showing you how this used to be built. So let's go in here. So the link didn't come through. Oh, maybe, okay, sorry. Thank you so much. I only shared it with the host and the panelists, not everybody. Oh, Nick, would you mind, it looks like maybe I can't share it with everybody. Could you just paste that link that I shared so everyone can see it if that's possible?
Yep, I'm already on it.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, great. So AI has been around before, and going back to that Jexy vignette at the beginning from the movie, I for those who joined late, I shared a little clip from a movie, Jexy. Chatbots are not known as being super user friendly. A lot of users complain about how they don't know what I'm trying. I don't. It doesn't have the right answer for me. It doesn't understand what I'm trying to say. And so generative AI has it holds the promise of solving a lot of those pain points. But first, I'm going to show you how we used to build things and how we will still need to a bit. So natural language understanding is a kind of a foundational AI or a foundational principle of AI when it comes to chatbots. So we use AI to try to figure out what a user is saying. And we typically have, in this old scheme, we have intents, entities, and dialogue. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build a chatbot for UXPA Boston. Okay. And I'm going to build a chatbot. Let's say there's folks, and actually, if you want, in the chat, you can put maybe some things that you'd want to have in a chatbot that UXPA Boston has. What are some things that people come, and probably Nick or other leaders in the organization know best, but like if you have someone that's kind of hunting around on USPABoston.org and you want them to ask questions or they have different needs, like what are some things that we want to accomplish if we were to build a chatbot? Just throw some things in there for me. And it's okay if if it takes you a little bit. Find me jobs that meet my skills and experience. Okay. Let me get a couple more. Thank you, David. What are suggested resources for students, recent grads, and people pivoting into UX? Okay. Okay. So I'll take those two and feel free to keep throwing them in. Those are two great suggestions. So I have this sort of base skill where it has, so what intents are like buckets of meaning, okay? Because there are a lot of ways to say the same, with different words, you're trying to accomplish the same thing. So for example, on the find me jobs that meet my skills and experience. So I'm going to create a new intent and I'm going to call it find me jobs. This is an intent. Actually, let's just copy and paste here. And it's not the same thing as like basically remembering the user or past combos. It's a little bit different. I'll explain what I mean. So I'm going to give some examples. So I might put in the chat here different ways that you might say to a chatbot or to a person that you want to find jobs that meet skills and experience. You could say, I need a job. I'm trying to find work. I'm a junior designer and I'm looking for my first job. How do I improve my resume? What kind of experience do I need to get a senior UX role? Okay, let me see if there's okay, no suggestions, that's fine. So what I want to show you is that although we said find me jobs that meet my skills and experience, right? There's a lot of different, there's a lot of different ways that I can, a lot of different kind of like sub needs that I need in that big bucket. And then there are maybe different ways of saying the same thing. So I can say, how do I improve my resume? I can also say, how do I make my resume better? My resume is bad. Recruiters don't like my resume. Okay. I need a job. I can say, I need work. I had trouble finding work. Okay. So I have 10 examples of things. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, let's go back. And this is my find me jobs. Let's add one more. I see it's 7:22. And how to contact the president or VP of the UXPA org. Aha. Okay. This is a great example. Thank you, Kelly. So let's say we're going to have one. Do we have one already for contact? We have a general connect to agent. Okay, we might have to, this might be a great example. So we're going to have a new one and we're going to say contact because Kelly said president or VP. Okay, contact the president or VP. And we're going to say, I want to contact a leader. I want to contact the president. I want to contact the VP. I want to contact someone. Okay. So for the sake of time, we'll just use these and let's throw one more intent in there. I want to, what's the president's email address? What's your email address? And this might be, it might feel a little slow. I know it's like you're watching me fill this out, but I really want you to understand how this worked before. And I want you to understand how generative AI empowers that. We're almost like 5 more minutes on this example. Okay, so we just created 2 intents. So intents, remember, are buckets of meaning. We're trying to, what are different ways someone can ask to achieve the same goal? Okay, now, entities. Are there specific words that can be used that we can tag? And I'm going to use Kelly's example for this. Okay. Oh, great. Now, okay, now UXPA Boston put in a great example of a dialogue of dialogue. So I'm gonna add that. Okay. So let's create an entity and we're gonna call it UXPA leader. Okay. And I'm gonna have 2 values in it. One is gonna be president. And one is gonna be called VP. And it's gonna have a synonym of vice president. Okay. So there's gonna be this concept called leader. But we can have different kinds of leaders. One's going to be president, one's going to be VP. And if you say vice president or VP, we know you just mean the same thing, VP. Okay. We'll look at holiday to give you another example. So if a user mentions a holiday, here's all the holidays it can use, the user can use. And for example, Christmas, we can have all these synonyms for how to say Christmas. Okay. Now we're going to create dialogue. So this was, I used like a very simple template. And what it does is it's basically like an algorithm. An algorithm is just a decision tree, right? If you do this, do that. If you do this, you do that. So right now it starts off at the beginning, at the opening, it gives you this welcome. It says, hello, I'm a demo customer care. So we're going to say, instead of saying that, we're going to say, and there's some variables here, which I'm not going to mess with right now. And we're going to say, hi, welcome to UXPA. That's all I'm going to say. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert in here, we're going to create a new node. and we're going to call this contact the president. We're going to say contact. Okay. And we're going to say, if the assistant recognizes the intent, contact the president or VP. Now we're going to say, okay, now check this out. So let's do VP, and then this is what we're going to do. We're going to create now a child node. So we're going to say, if the assistant recognizes contact us, we're going to say the assistant should say, I understand. No, the assistant's not going to say anything. The assistant should jump to the child node and wait for user input. Okay. And so we're going to say, if the assistant recognizes UXPA leader is president, then you're going to say, I see you want to contact the president. And then now we're going to say it like this. We're going to copy what the president said. Whoops. Didn't copy it. Great. You can reach us. Good. Now we're going to do another one at below. If the assistant recognizes entity UXPA leader is VP. Okay, thank you very much. You can contact. Keeps my copying still, for some reason, keeps not working. Contact. Okay. And then one more finally, and then we'll play around with this and we'll move on. Add node below. Let's move this down. Whoops. Move below. And if it recognizes anything else, it's going to say, I heard you want to. So you want to contact a leader. Please go to uxpa.org. Okay, I know that might not be, okay. And let me just make sure we're gonna jump to here. Okay, and we're gonna make recognizes reply. Good, skip user input and evaluate child notes, very good. Okay, so now, let's try this out. So this is like my little sandbox demo. So first I want to say, okay, let's clear this. Okay, good. So it greeted me with, hi, welcome to UXPA. See, we just changed that. Now, if I want to say something, now, although I added, I only added the dialogue here for the contact because I'm seeing we're short on time. So if I say something like, what are your hours? Our hours are Monday through Friday. So because I had this down here, I figured it out. So now let's see if what we added works. So I'm going to say, how do I contact a leader? Okay, good. My live demo works. Whew, okay, so let's look at what happened. So what it did is, it said, so here's where we're using AI. It has an 80% confidence that the sentence that I used belongs in that contact the president or VP bucket. So it's basically using natural language understanding to like, it's like, okay, the sentence you wrote is kind of similar to these other sentences. Now watch what happens. If I use an exact sentence that I put in the contact example, I want to contact a leader. Let's try that. I want to contact a leader. Watch what happens. 100%, 1, because I'm using an exact phrase that it was trained on. So this is how the concept is: we build an intent, we give it enough examples so it starts to understand what we're trying to accomplish, but we don't need to give it an example for every single way someone could say something, because then we don't have anything that's actually like an AI, right? We're not doing natural language understanding. We don't have a model that we're training off of. And I'm sorry that I'm speaking fast still. I'll try to slow it down. So up here, what we did is it matched the sentence that I wrote. And you see, how do I contact a leader is a little different than I want to contact a leader. But it was 80% confident that it belongs in that bucket. Now, what it did is we can actually see the path that it took. So it followed this algorithm. So what I did is I pressed this little location finder and it jumped down the tree. It said, oh, wait, okay. I see that your phrase matches this contacted VP bucket. Now I'm going to evaluate the child nodes because that's what we told it to do. We did not use the word president or the word VP, so it gave me the general response. Now watch what happens. If I say, how do I contact the president of UXPA? Ah, I see you want to contact the president. Now, what did I do? Okay, and see, I made a mistake. What I did is I said sequential instead of multi-line. Now let's try it again. How do I contact the president? Here we go. You can reach us through the Contact Us and UXPA board pages on our website through our Slack channel and then because I didn't use it cut off the end of the word, but you get where I'm going with this. So if you all are trying to play around, you should be able to in real time play around with this, right? How do I contact the VP of UXPA? Boom. Contact vice president for our VP. And so because I haven't programmatically, you have to use certain symbols for like the @ sign, which is so my message is getting cut off, but you get the idea that it's working, right? It's actually going in and it is finding the proper response and it's giving me a response. So now I know that was that might have been a painful, however long that took me, 15, 20 minutes. But this is how we used to build chatbots. Now imagine you have a product, with lots of products, and imagine how many. I mean, we just look how long it took me just to create a chatbot where you can ask about the president. We didn't even start talking about the other question from David about finding my jobs. But this is essentially what you would need to do to create a robust chatbot. Now, let me just go in here and see if anyone's been interacting with it. Ah, okay, look. So now if I want to improve the model, so I can actually see, because this is a real platform. Now, these are what we call user utterances. So everyone who's been playing around with this, right? What's your gender? Are you sentient? So what it did is it's trying to guess, and you probably didn't have great responses, right? Now, like, for example, what's your gender? It gave you a response on general greetings, right? So, and I can actually go in and I can see this conversation, right? So, so long, bye, what's your gender? Hi, good evening. Are you sentient? I didn't understand. Can you try again? And so what I would do as a designer, I would really want to be living in this data. This is basically like user testing. I can see real data, and now I can create the conversational flows, and I can figure out what the user needs are. So I'm going to pause for a second, and I'm going to take a glass of water. Any questions on what we just went through? And my plan is to finish at, I know we started at, my plan is to finish up here in the next 10, 15 minutes at most for questions. Any questions or comments so far? Right, Kelly says, OMG, no wonder Verizon chat never knows what I need when I'm asking, right? So like the best chatbots, I mean, there are like, just because I'm in banking, I know like Erica for Bank of America, there's like, or at least there used to be like 100 people working on that. And there's all different, different flows for making this stuff work. Okay, I'm going to mute myself. Keep any questions or comments coming. All right, now, those of you who suffered through watching me use Watson Assistant, now we get to the fun stuff. Generative AI. So I'm going to share my screen again. Now, let's build a chatbot with generative AI instead. I'm going to go to UXPA Boston's site, and there's a lot of content here already. And remember, we were talking about contacting. Let's go to About Us. Let's go to the Contact Us page. And let's see what we have here. Okay, so there's not anything listed specifically. And this is when, doing stuff on the fly is maybe not, I looked at this beforehand. Okay, so we have all these people. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into OpenAI Playground, and we're going to go into chat mode. We're going to use 3.5 Turbo. There's some other things we're not going to get into right now. And I'm going to say, you are the helpful assistant of an organization called UXPA, which stands for User Experience. I won't even do all that. Let's just do UXPA. You answer questions with the information below. And I'm just going to start pasting some stuff in here. So let's do About Us. So UX provides. We're just gonna paste some stuff. Let's learn about. Okay. Local experts. Let's just paste this whole page. We're just gonna throw some things in here. Okay. Let's view the meetings. Okay. Let's do sponsors. Okay. Okay, let's throw this in here. Let's view the bylaws. Okay. Ooh, there's a PDF copy, even better. Okay. Ooh, and this is great. So this is a lot of content, which is great. These are your bylaws. Okay. So I threw in some stuff here. Now I'm gonna give it a little bit of a head start, and I'm gonna give it some example for the experience. So I'm gonna say I want to know more about UXPA. And I want the bot to respond by something like this. So now let's add a question now. Okay. So now we're going to say, who are leaders of UXPA? Oh, because I gave it token. So let me cut down because of the bylaws are so long. I gave it too much. Hold on. Let's just cut out that much. Let's see how much we got going on here. Okay, I'm very close. 400 words. All right, let's cut out the conflict of interest piece. Okay, let's cut out some more. And part of me doing this is I want you all to, okay, I'm still over it. Okay, maybe doing the bylaws is not a good idea. Thanks for bearing with me. Hopefully I'm not losing people as I'm stumbling here. Okay, now check this out. So I haven't done any sort of intents or entities or dialogue. Here's what it gave me. The leaders of UXPA Boston are the members of the board of directors. They're responsible for governance, right? So this is pulling from the text I gave it. They serve 3-year terms. they're elected by. Let's see if I can add, let's see. Sorry, no, I don't want you to, okay, let's add a message. What's the president's email address? I'm not sure. No, I don't think I had put it in here. Tell me more about UXPA. Oh, okay. UXPA, which stands for User Experience Professional Association, right? So what it's doing is it's using this foundational model from ChatGPT, but I'm feeding it information. So I'm saying, don't use the whole internet, just use the information I gave you. And it's using the power of the model to find answers. So that's what's crazy about. So do you see how now, I'm kind of fumbling around. I'm just picking information on the fly, but do you see how powerful this could be as a chatbot, right? That I don't have to do all that architecting, and you already look. I'm just pasting a few things in, and I didn't even, if I just gave it like a document of everything about the organization and fed it, I could get it to run. Let's see if let's try one more. Who's a sponsor of UXPA? Look, they're a well-known company. Look, and then they even gave does it have on UXPA that they're a well-known company in the technology and design industry? So maybe it's pulling from the internet to fill in some of this stuff, right? So the reason why I may still want to use that old school IBM Watson way of doing conversation design is that maybe I don't want it to just make up stuff. Maybe I want to make sure that customers are getting real detailed answers to certain things. So that is the okay, so you have a question from email. What do you think are the top implications of ChatGPT and its design influence on accessibility outcomes? Okay, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that for end because I know we're close to the end here. It's 7:40. It's 7:44. So let's shift gears. So I want to show you all. I'm going to answer that question by way. So you've kind of seen building a chatbot the old way, building it potentially with generative AI. Now, what do you think are the top implications of ChatGPT and its design influence on accessibility outcomes? Now, because of the codecs built into GPT-4, you can write accessible code a lot easier. So from like a technical perspective, and I don't know, for those of you who maybe have dabbled a little bit, so I can use generative AI to write code. Okay, so I can say, make me a landing page for an organization, so I'm going to do two things. I'm going to say, what are some types of content I would have? Let's do it this way. What types of content would there be on a landing page for an organization of user experience professionals? Okay. Okay, brand identity, about us, service and program. So I'm just creating from scratch. I'm creating here like what kind of content would be for it. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say in HTML and inline CSS and inline JavaScript, create for me an accessible landing page website from the content above. Okay, so now ChatGPT is writing code for me. it's writing HTML. This is nothing fancy. It's just markup, right? And I asked it to be accessible, so we'll see how accessible it is. Let's see, did it give me any? Okay, it gave me some inline. Now it has an on click. It has a it has section ID, so I can actually go and paste this. If we had a little more time, I'd like put this in a text editor and then show you what the output would be, right? So to answer your question, if I'm a designer and I want to see all the semantic HTML, right? If I'm a designer and maybe I'm not super versed in HTML, but I want to support developers on writing good semantic HTML, then I can use a tool like this to help me, right? And it even tells me about WCAG, right? It tells me, it mentions a color contrast, semantic HTML, right? So here's one way that would be an implication of ChatGPT. Another implication I would say from a designer perspective is that if experiences are maybe moving away from visual experiences and they can be more personalized and text-based, then if everything's text, then we can maybe have baked in a more accessible experience, because we're not having to remember, oh, we have an image, so we need to make sure we have alt text, and we have a video, so we got to have a web VTT file with captions and subtitles. Maybe if it's just text, it's going to be a lot more accessible out of the box, right? As if we have that initial UI built properly. And there's crazy. I mean, you can have it, right? Write me a code. So this was a super simple example. With something like a ChatGPT, code me a game, a simple game like Pong with Python. Let's see what it does. Great. So now we've just asked ChatGPT we're not copying, code. We're not like copying someone else's code somewhere. We're having it looking at code, probably a lot in GitHub and elsewhere. We're having it write a game in Python here on the fly. So we don't have the time to dig into some of the more programmatic things you can do with something like generative AI, but I hope this is peeling back the covers for you. So you can, and it even has comments in the code, right? It's telling you there's commenting in the code, like it's writing good, it's writing, like at least there's comments in the code. This is not like terrible code, right? Now, I haven't actually looked at it to run it and see. Okay, so now for going back to your question, and I see we're at 7:50. I want to end. We'll give ourselves like 5 more minutes for questions. So again, going back to the question of what do you think are top implications of ChatGPT and its design influence on accessibility outcomes? So we're going to be able to create a lot, I would say, on the flip side for maybe accessibility, maybe things are going to be less accessible. There's a tool that I wanted to show you. It's called Blockade Labs. It's called Skybox AI. So we've talked about conversational design. We've talked about chatbots and generative AI. Now this is more the fun, like instead of showing you Midjourney or DALL-E and like, hey, you can create this image, to more of like how our world may be changing. I want to show you this tool called Blockade Labs. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to draw here. So someone give me in text a world. We're going to have Blockade Labs create a 360-degree world for us, a digital world. So just describe to me in the chat, like something from your imagination, a landscape, a room. Okay, so I need more, not just palm trees. I need more. Give me rich descriptions of something. Flying sharks. Okay, give me more, but I need sentences. Go for it. A desert with black forest cake. Okay, more. I need more. Give me more. Ooh, okay. And the inside of a whale's stomach from the perspective of swallow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, let's use this one. So, and then, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw the opening of the whale's mouth. And whales don't have sharp, so I'm going to change it to, because whales don't have like sharp teeth, but we'll just say that the whale has a sharp teeth. Why not? Well, we're creating our own thing. So we're going to draw an opening. The whale has a square mouth. This will be the opening. And we're going to imagine that the whale has some teeth here at the top and the bottom. And then we're going to say, and it's going to be let's not do realistic because that might be a little weird. Let's just do digital painting and we'll see what we get. And we're going to say the inside of a whale's, thank you, Abshek, for this, of a whale's stomach. And I mean, you can't really see the mouth from the stomach, but we'll just, well, it's a whale, so it's different. We're using our imagination here. The inside of a whale's stomach from the perspective of a swallowed human. You can see the whale's mouth and teeth. This whale has teeth. Generate. Now it's going to take it a little bit to generate. So I'm going to stop sharing. And while that generates, I'm going to just open it up for questions. We've been here for almost an hour and a half. I really appreciate your patience. I will, while this is generating in the background, I'll just open this up to questions, comments. Actually, wait, it generated. So we have, it was a little faster than I thought. Let me share, hold on. Okay, so check it out. Let's zoom, let's go around here. Now it has some space things going on. Okay, this looks like this could be some kind of like cartilage or things going on. Look, it has some, that's interesting. And then check this out. Where I drew, it actually put the mouth there where I drew it. So not only is this creating an image for me, I can draw landscapes and then it can basically fit into what, like it's adapting to what I'm outlining visually, right? So I wanted to, you might have heard of Midjourney or DALL-E or some of these image generators, but I wanted to close with this because there's a lot of tools that are coming out, and whether it's voice generation, music generation, image generation. Now remember, generative AI is one branch of large language models. So there's a lot more that can be done. It's not just this generative AI, but I wanted to this is something cool to close with. So there are risks. I didn't have the time to talk a lot about them. So in closing, okay, so so there are risks there, and again, I'd love to I can share some research, some references with Nick following this talk. I know I jumped around a little bit. I try to adapt to the audience, but I want to just leave you with, and there's actually this pretty interesting, as I'm answering questions here. Okay. And for some reason, okay, here we go. So this is what I wanted to leave you on, and then I'll answer some of your questions. This is a pretty interesting, I didn't have a lot of time to talk about the ethical implications. I highly recommend this article to you. This is in The Verge. It's called AI is a Lot of Work. You remember how I mentioned how with the reinforcement learning for human feedback, RLHF, like there are people, even though we're talking about ChatGPT and AI and generative AI, right? There are people that are making these systems smarter. And what this article is evidencing is that there's basically a new underclass being created of the people who are actually doing the data labeling. So if you remember, you go back to my picture of what did not go well, where there was like, Black people labeled as gorillas. So there are people now going in and they don't want to have that problem again, right? So they're giving it in the same way we fed Watson Assistant with examples of intents. There's people feeding ChatGPT with examples and Bard with examples. And so I just want you all to know that, this is not just a robot that just doesn't have any implications for human rights, for labor. There's also environmental implications with the processing power and the energy needed for that. So in summary, or not in summary, so let me just talk about some of the questions and then let me go through them here, and feel free to keep the questions coming. So what are some suggestions for UX designers collaborating with developers or data scientists when working with large language models? So I would say to first go, I would read in the same way, if you're a UX designer working on like traditional web applications, having some doesn't mean you need to be a developer. We don't have to have that debate, but having some context for, knowing about semantic HTML, knowing about maybe some basic JavaScript, some CSS, right, can help you interact with a developer. Same thing, right? Knowing some of the basic ideas of these models, like what temperature is, what tokens are, right? So there's lots of resources out there, but so I definitely get a little bit more familiar with the technology. What are some suggestions collaborating with developers or data scientists? There are tools, like I recommend, there's a tool called Voiceflow that I highly recommend for conversation design. They also they're implementing large language model like sandboxes, so you can play around with large language models. Going back to my comments about bias, right? So we as designers have I would say, obligation to raise our hand with questions of bias, right? So, let's have transparency about what platforms we're using, what models we're using, where the data is coming from. Are we sharing with, do users know when they're talking to a bot, when they're talking to a generative AI, when they're talking to a human, right? So there are some sort of, instead of dark patterns, there are some more positive patterns around being friendly, being user-friendly in this and responsible in this time. Another question from Marcia. How do you combine the language and understanding of generative AI with more specific tasks, like rebooking your flight? Thanks, David. Thanks, David. Take care. So Marcia said, how do you combine the language and understanding of generative AI with more specific tasks? So you can programmatically, so in the same way that we use Watson Assistant where we had to say, okay, for this specific thing, you use this entity, you're trying to accomplish this. So we can go in and there's APIs that OpenAI has made where you can go in and you kind of use the foundation model, but then you can accomplish specific things. So in the same way, so for example, let's just do this live. And we're at 8 o'clock. So Nick, feel free to jump in, and I'm basically wrapping up with this final sandbox demo here.
Yeah, no worries. We can go for a bit longer.
Okay. So let's go here and let's change this around. Let's close, get started. Let's actually just restart. Just do a refresh here. And we're gonna, so we're still using ChatGPT, but we're gonna say, you are the assistant for airline. You are the virtual assistant for an airline. You can help customers book new flights or change their current flight. I'm not even gonna tell a whole lot more, and we'll give it a little demo. We'll give it a little example. We're gonna say, you know, I want to change my flight. I understand you want to change your flight. That, by the way, by me repeating what the user said, that is one of the principles in conversation design, whether it's generative AI or not, where we're doing some mirroring, right? So we're restating. So we're helping, we're giving some confidence to the user that we understand what they mean, right? So now by restating it, the user is going to know that, oh yeah, you understood what I meant, right? I understand you want to change your flight. Can you tell me what your flight number is? So now let's add another message, and we're going to say, my flight number is 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's submit that. So look, I have told, look how little information I've given ChatGPT. I haven't told it anything. And it just said, thank you for providing the flight number. To better assist you, could you please confirm the date and time of your original flight, as well as your desired new date and time for a change? So do you see the power of this thing? It's just crazy. It's crazy. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. Okay. So just to go back to Marsha's question, how do you combine the language and understanding of generative AI with more specific tasks? Yeah, so that's one example. Any other questions or comments as we wrap up here? So I was a little bit jumping around at the end as I'm trying to extemporaneously respond to these questions and comments. I already left you with this whole comment about The Verge and how there's these human labelers of data. So yeah, the world's your oyster. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope you come away with this feeling a little bit more confident about understanding what OpenAI and ChatGPT is actually doing, how it works. I hope that you came away with some understanding of some basic principles of conversation design. Yes, let me post the article link in the chat. And then Nick, if you can paste this, share this with everyone. And then I hope that you saw some very, just like the beginning of the world of generative AI, what's potentially out there. This is just, there was so much more. I mean, this really could have been a whole probably semester of different classes on stuff. So I hope that, feel free, reach out to Nick, reach out to me. I'll give my information if you want to learn more. I can provide a list of resources to Nick, but it was really a privilege. It's an honor to hang out with you all. Maybe if I'm in Boston sometime, I'll come say hi. And yeah, really nice to be here. Thank you very much, Nick, for the opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. We're happy to have you. And thanks for even showing us demos too. And yeah, for everyone else who's still here, next week we'll aim to have a recording up, and I can connect with Jason for getting copies of any links or resources to go along with it too.
Awesome.
So yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right, take care.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Bye.
Bye.